Braxton, you mean the world to me? Apparently not. So I was on Instagram and I was looking at a post, and it was talking about there were these evangelical faith leaders, these evangelical thought faith leaders, and they were writing these books. One was called Toxic Empathy, and they were alluding to the fact that they believed that empathy was a bad thing. They believed that empathy would lead you and align you to hell. Empathy is the very crux of humanity. In everything that Jesus talked about, it was empathy. As a matter of fact, and it's interesting that a Christian would say that empathy would align you with hell, but empathy is supposed to be your pathway to a higher understanding with God and with fellow man. Anybody, if you'll hear Christians talk, they will always talk about how they were in the dark and they have seen the light now. They have changed. And what generally happens is they became different than they were before. They become more empathic. They become more understanding. They can become more tolerant. Hate the sin, love the sinner. Those kind of things. Saul, on his way to Damascus, was struck blind. Jesus said, why you keep persecuting me? He went all in. Not only did he change his name, but he changed his direction. He became an apostle. So faith and the expulsion of it and the accepting of it generally means a change, and you generally become more Christ-like. Empathy was all Christ talked about. When he came across Mary and Martha at the grave of Lazarus, he cried with them. Empathy. Even though he knew he was going to wake them up a few minutes later. He knew he was going to wake Lazarus up. He still cried. He showed humanity and empathy. Do unto others that you would have them do unto you. That is empathy. That is all empathic. Right before he was going to be crucified, he said, let this cup pass from me. I don't want to do it anymore. But he knew what he had to do. I didn't know he was going to put vinegar, make me drink vinegar and put a crown and pinch me in the side. God, get him. I don't want to do it. He did it. Empathy, love, and empathy is all he's been about. I talked a couple of weeks ago about electing people that are from the business arena, because the business arena generally has no empathy. He talked about there are things that allude to the way that Christ probably felt about empathy when he talked about the fact that it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to see the kingdom of heaven, because generally you show a lack of humanity, a lack of empathy. You don't have to look any further than Elon Musk. Look at the agenda they have set forward for people. Like, generally, people who want elected, the premise is that you want to become a public servant. You want to serve the public. How do you serve the public with no empathy, with disdain? You don't have any empathy at all. The only way you can serve the public when you despise them is to make a cookbook. So you can be a lot of things. Empathy is not important in a lot of things. We can tell by the way the things that you think are important, the way you're governing us. You want it to be okay to grab children and separate them from their parents, or give people no warning and take their jobs away from them, or not give them you don't want to educate them or give them food, make sure they're fed. So we can tell by the way that you legislate the things that you believe, despite what you say. A lack of empathy, and it really is taking hold in the evangelical arena. These are thought leaders. These are the people that they listen to. And they malign empathy. They talked about how it is aligning you with hell to be loving, to be Christ-like. Everything he did showed empathy. Whether he fed the poor or healed the sick, he didn't wake them up when he healed them and say, by the way, you have a deductible due. By the way, you're not covered. He did everything he did to show love and to show humanity. Everything he did. And anybody who says that, there are a lot of things you can be without empathy. You can be a bus driver. You can be an airplane pilot. You can be a dentist. You can be a doctor. You can be a teacher. You can be a cafeteria worker. You can be a comedian. You can be a co-host. You can be an actress. You can be an actor. You can be a director. There are a lot of things you can be. You can be a crossing guard. You can be a mechanic. There are a lot of things you can be without empathy. The one thing you cannot be without empathy, it is absolutely impossible to be without empathy, is a Christian. The one thing you can't be without empathy is a Christian. And if you're saying that you're a Christian and you don't have empathy, that's not who you are. That's your pronoun. That's a little note for the GED section. Got a judge report cut up in 15 minutes. It's the D.L. Hughley Show.